The Florida Gators are coming back from a bye week now, and let's talk about what we need to see from these Florida Gators here on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. Happy Monday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work at Whole Nine Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33. Join the Locked On Gators Discord. Links in the description. Join Subtext as well. It's 2-week free trial, then $5 per month, and we'll have live in-game analysis and reactions there, and we'll go in-depth on more exclusive content, all that fun stuff. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for your first deposit match up to $100. Daily fantasy sports made easy. And now we're talking about what the Florida Gators are doing coming out of this bye week, because not only are you coming off the bye week, but you're coming off the bye week against Georgia. But this is not just a, what do they have to do this week? This is, what do the Florida Gators have to do for the remainder of the season, really, and what needs to be shown after the bye week. And for me, I think the first thing that you talk about is offensive play calling. And yes, we know that conversations have been had on Twitter and in multiple Discord servers about whether or not Florida's really changed their play calling. I know that there was the play without flood that we talk about, where it was like 2x1 low, 2x1 high, and it was all that fun stuff that's been going around on Twitter. But let's be real here. It's been a lot of the same calls passing, like that flood, sail, whatever you want to call it. That stuff's the same. What's changed here and what's helped it work a little bit more effectively is the way that they look, the way that they get into those looks. They've gotten more creative with how they get to the same play that they've been working to. That's why I know last week I mentioned, hey, let's see that jet motion and then run the wheel up the sideline and have Ricky Pearsall run a post or whatever it was. Let's see that jet motion and run that wheel up the sideline. Have someone run that fake screen, because we've seen the fake screen wheel work. We've seen Florida go to it quite a few times. Let's see it get more creative, because that's what they've been doing. They've been getting to the same looks that they want to get, or they've been getting to the same plays that they want to get to, but they've been doing it through different looks. And that's what's been impressive about this. It's not really that they're doing a ton differently calling plays. They're getting a little bit more aggressive, yes, but it's that they're getting more creative with how they get to certain plays. And that's, like, you deserve credit for doing that, because so often you'll see a team come out in a certain look and you can kind of expect what you're going to see there. Not really the case that much with the Florida Gators recently, because they've been switching up how they get. And a lot of that is also just Eugene Wilson III, one, being healthy, and two, getting more experience. Because like I've mentioned before, Eugene Wilson III, I don't know if I've ever seen a freshman that wasn't a quarterback change schematically what this offense does. Because when Eugene Wilson III is on the field, you have that jet motion actually being a threat. When Ricky Pearsall runs it, when Eugene Wilson III was banged up, when Ricky Pearsall ran that jet motion, maybe once a game he's getting the ball on either the handoff or the pop pass. But Eugene Wilson III, he runs, and there's a solid chance he's going to get it. There's a solid chance you're going to throw it to him when he runs by and he has that little swing. They've put him in the backfield. Like, they've done a lot of the things that they've been doing, but they've been getting creative looks there. And that's what's been the biggest improvement. You need to not regress, and I don't just mean in the Georgia game. I mean against Arkansas, against LSU, against Missouri, against Florida State. Continue getting with those creative looks. Also, I think an important part with the offensive play calling is maybe not necessarily the actual play calls themselves, but allow Graham Mertz, like keep giving him that green light. Keep giving Graham Mertz the green light to be as aggressive as he wants to be. Because he's shown, hey, I'm willing to take that deep shot. And that opens up everything. That opens up the run game. That opens up the underneath pass. Because you have to be at least willing to throw that deep ball. And yeah, let's sacrifice his completion percentage a little bit. I don't care if you're completing 80% of your passes and we're punting a bunch. Doesn't matter. If you're completing 60%, but we're actually moving the ball downfield, or 65%, and you're actually moving the ball downfield, that matters a lot more. I care about scoring points, getting touchdowns. And so allowing Graham Mertz to throw that deep ball, whether it's complete or not, opens up this offense to be more of a vertical threat. And you have some guys that can do that. I don't know if Caleb Douglas is going to return this year, but he showed last year and he showed this year before he got injured that he's capable of creating those plays deep downfield, even if separation isn't there. He's a jump ball winner. That's one of the reasons that he's really going to be missed. I don't think Florida has another jump ball winner the way that Caleb Douglas does. And that's not a knock on anybody. Caleb Douglas is really good at that. But Ricky Pearsall can get open. You let him run a post or a corner and he can get there and he can win contested catches. Not so much jump balls, but contested catches. Give Marcus Burke a shot. Throw Arliss over there. You've got guys that can stretch the field a bit. Let Eugene Wilson III run downfield. Put Aiden Mizell on the field. Let him run downfield. I feel like I've talked about Aiden Mizell so much as someone where I don't care if you throw the ball to him or not. Just let him run straight. And we saw maybe the Kentucky game, was it? Where Aiden Mizell ran downfield. And I know that the throw was into double coverage because it was a bad throw. Let's be honest there. Aiden Mizell, to me, looked like he had a step on his, and I do mean one single step on his defender. But the ball was thrown a bit short. He had to slow down for it, and there were two defenders that made the play there. If I'm not mistaken, it was a Kentucky game. But you put him out there and you let him run straight. He's a vertical spacer. That's what he does. Just let him stretch the field, and it opens things up. And as long as you throw to him once, twice, even if you intentionally throw it a little bit out of bounds, where it's either him or nobody, having that threat and that speed means that defenses have to respect it, and it can open up everything underneath. It can open up Arliss out of the slot, or Arliss at inline tight end. It can open up Hayden for a short gain first down, just something that can open things up here. So the offensive play calling, it's been relatively improved. It needs to continue, even if you don't continue improving there, which you should continue improving, it needs to not regress to what it was prior to a few weeks ago. That's what really needs to change here. Now we're going to move to the defensive side of the ball. But before we do that, it's time for your game changer of the week, brought to you by Athletic Brewing Company. And yeah, the Florida Gators did not play a game this past weekend, but they still have a game changer of the week. Of course, it's LJ McCray. He's changed the recruiting class the way that Athletic Brewing has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that, get this, actually taste good. You can find Athletic Brewing Co.'s non-alcoholic brews at a store near you or buy online at athleticbrewing.com. First-time customers can use code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, to get 15% off of your first online order. So put in code LOCKEDON at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewing.com. Exclusions apply. Athletic Brewing Company is fit for all times. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. And like I mentioned, check out Subtext, the links in the description below. It's one-on-one conversations that we get to have privately, off air. 14 days free, 2 weeks free, and then $5 per month following that. Again, exclusive content's going to be coming to that soon, once I'm back in the States, which is going to be this week. So we will be getting to that, and also during games, one-on-one conversations and live in-depth analysis. But now we're looking at the defensive side of the football here, because we talked about offense. Now I'm going to look at the defense here because the defense has, I think you can say they've consistently generated pressure. However, part of that is because they blitz a good deal, or we'll say Austin Armstrong has shown the ability to scheme pressure. And I am of the belief that scheming pressure is more important than, scheming sacks or generate. It's great to get sacks. I understand that. But, Bill Belichick has said, oh, yeah, like scheming pressure is more important here. Gonna take the side of Bill Belichick. I understand sacks are awesome. Yeah, totally. But when we're talking about defense, if Bill Belichick says that he agrees with something, I'm gonna stay on that side of the argument there. But pressure, they've been consistent, partially because Austin Armstrong has been able to scheme pressure, whether that's actually blitzing, so sending more than 4 defenders to rush the passer, whether that's creepers dropping someone like Princely Monrealin, which I hate, into coverage and rushing Jaden Hill or someone else, whether that's creating simulated pressures, putting 5, 6 defenders on the line of scrimmage, and then rushing 4 of them and dropping the others back into coverage where you're not blitzing, but you're making the offensive line think, hey, we're sending the house, and you're making the quarterback think, hey, we're sending the house. And that causes confusions. We've seen stunts quite a bit. I know that I think it was the South Carolina game, we had Chris McClellan stunt out and loop around and actually get a hit on Spencer Rattler. I don't remember if it was a sack, but he got a hit on Spencer Rattler there. And so pressure, they've been consistent. Whether it's because of players winning, and by players winning, I do mean mostly Princely Umanmiel, and nobody else on this defense, I believe, has a pass rush win rate over 12%, if I'm not mistaken, and Princely's damn near 30%. So it's been him as an individual and no one else as an individual, or it's been as a team scheme pressure open. That's great. Generating pressure, fantastic. You could force some mistakes. Here's the important part. Far too often, when there's pressure from the front, it just falls apart on the back end. I understand everybody wants to go, like sacks are great. There have been multiple times this season, and by multiple, I don't mean 3 or 4. I mean, there's probably been 12, 15 times this season where pressure gets in early. I don't mean, oh, the quarterback's been sitting here for 8 seconds and then he throws it up. No, pressure gets in early, and then there's a big play given up on the back end. Whether that's because of just not covering your man properly, like we saw against Tennessee. It was Princely Umanmielen on rushing from the left side of the quarterback. He does a spin move to the inside, hits Joe Milton, and it was like a play that was like a second and a half, maybe 2 seconds, and Joe Milton just throws a bomb up deep, and Brew McCoy's wide open running past Jakeem Jackson. And I get it, true freshman, yes. But you also have plays like that. You have plays like against South Carolina. I don't remember who it was that generated the pressure, but it was very early pressure on the interior, if I'm not mistaken. It was very early pressure. Spencer Rattler just throws it up to the post, and I think it was Jalen Kimber just got dogged at the catch point. Stuff like that happens far too often, where the pressure's generated, and it's like, oh, big play, huh? Like, I know that there's Ankle Yankin in the Locked On Gators Discord. He's always tagging me, and it's very tongue in cheek. But he's like, oh, look, pressure and a big play, and it's like, yeah, immediate pressure would have been great to get a sack, but immediately pressure, big play because the defense is doing God knows what on the back end, and stuff like that just happens far too often. Whether it's just a mental lapse by the defender, I don't know what they're doing. Whether it's something like, oh, they slipped, like when you look at the 70-yard touchdown that Bryson Barnes threw for the first play from scrimmage for Utah's offense, and Miguel Mitchell slipped and then RJ Moten had to come up and try to make a play, and then he had to run back to make a play, and then there were no plays being made for the Florida Gators defense. Whether you look at the touchdown, I forgot who it was that scored the touchdown, but for Tennessee, there's the Brew McCoy one deep down the sideline on the left, and then there was one on the right side of the field where Jason Marshall just whoop and completely whiffed on his press because he wanted to be really aggressive there for no reason whatsoever. And he lunged, he lost, and there was a touchdown on the back end there. Far too often, we look at plays happen and Twitter and just Florida Gators fans, not all of them, of course, but quite a few Florida Gators fans go, come on, pressure's got to hit home. But it's like, why are they so often open? Because it's not like this defense is blitzing 60% of the time where you're playing cover zero on the back end and you're just playing man to man and you're getting beat. There's often times where they're playing some variation of zone and they're screwing up there. And it seems like when they do have games where your pressure's not getting there, but your coverage is, it's because they're sending 3 defenders, they're sending 3 rushers at the quarterback because they have to drop 8 into coverage. There has not really been a time where this defense has shown up from the start of a game to the end of a game and played a complete game defensively on all sides. Again, the Tennessee one, they did probably their best job. But even then, you had the 55-yard touchdown on the left, and you had the Jason Marshall, I think it was like 11 yards or something like that, on the right side, where Jason Marshall whiffed on his press. We need to see a complete defense. And I understand it's the first year in a new system. You've still got a very young team. I understand all of that. But this is the SEC. Figure it out. Figure out how you're going to put together a complete defensive performance, not just against Georgia, not just against Arkansas, who just fired their offensive coordinator, not just Missouri, LSU, Florida State. Figure out how to string together defensive performances that are complete. Good pass rush, good run defense, good coverage. Like the Jalen Kimber one, I don't get too mad at when you look at the South Carolina game, where Jalen Kimber lost the jump ball, because at least you were playing good coverage there. I'd prefer that you made a play on the ball. I prefer you found a way to break that up. But at least you were playing good coverage there and able to actually be in position to make a play. Again, ideally, you do make a play, but at least you were in position there. It's not just getting beat. Find a way to play a complete defensive game here. Please. Please. We are about to talk about another thing that is issues with coaches and that it frustrates the hell out of me. But first, let me tell you guys about Prize Picks, because Prize Picks has been the best way for me to make money playing daily fantasy sports this year. And if you've got skills and a little bit of time to research, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few easy taps. It's simple and easy to play with quick withdrawals, too. It's what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. And like I said, I've been in Brazil for the past 2 NFL Sundays, so I haven't been able to play with Prize Picks, but right before I left, I did hit Zay Flower more than 43 receiving yards, Tua Tagovailoa more than 275 passing yards against the New York Giants, and Cooper Kupp more than 63 receiving yards in his return against the Eagles. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. And like I said, right before the break, I said, hey, there's something with coaches that drives me crazy. It drives, I think, the entire fan base crazy. And I try not to, pigeonhole the entire fan base into any opinion. I can't think of somebody that's been happy with the consistent effort of this team. Like, not showing up for one half and showing up for the other. Like, we can look at Tennessee. Showed up for the first half, did your job. Second half, not so much. We could look at South Carolina. Showed up for the first half, didn't show up for the third quarter, showed up for the fourth quarter. You look at road game struggles, and that's one that's especially been consistent under Billy Napier. Like last year, you could talk about some of the inconsistencies of being productive. some of it just fell on the shoulders of Anthony Richardson, flat out. You look at, I think it was the Florida State game, maybe the LSU game, where he went like 2 quarters without completing a pass. Some of that falls on him. However, this year we're looking at an incredibly efficient quarterback, and there's still just times where it feels like it crumbles. And you look at road games under Billy Napier, his entire tenure at Florida, he's had consistent struggles with showing up on the road for an entire game. Like, we could look at 2022. What the road schedule looked like was your first road game wasn't until week 4, and it was Tennessee. And that was your best road game. That was your best road game. You didn't have many. Like, you can look at the Texas A&M game, and some might go, oh, well, you won that one by 17. You scored 41 points. That had to be your best road game. No, because Texas A&M was missing a ton of players. Tennessee was the best road game, I believe, 38-33. You lost against a good Tennessee team. You went blow for blow with a good Tennessee team. And your defense, they did give up 38 points, but considering how bad the defense was last year and how good Tennessee's offense was last year, we'll take that. We'll take that. Anthony Richardson had his best performance. It was a great showing. Then you look at the Texas A&M game again, overrated how good that performance was, mostly because I believe that was a second half shutout too, but mostly overrated because of how many players Texas A&M didn't have. We kind of knew the second half would be where it got away from them because they just didn't have the depth in that game to really show up. It wasn't that they were missing a ton of starters, but they were missing a ton of key contributors on the back end. You look at the Vanderbilt game. Lost 31-24 to Vanderbilt on the road. Florida State was a good road game for Florida. It was. Lost by a touchdown, but it was a good road game for Florida. You look at the bowl game. I understand not having like we expected that loss. I don't think anybody expected a 35-point loss to Oregon State. Utah this year, defense allowed 24 points. 7 of them came on the first drive. Another 7 of them came after the 2 number 3 penalties because you screwed that up, and then Utah got even better field position and scored because they got the first down off of that. It was coaching errors that screwed that game up. Look at the Kentucky game this year. Showed up, got blown out of the water. And then South Carolina showed up for the first half, didn't show up for the third quarter, showed up for the fourth quarter. Like, this team has had consistent struggles with stuff like that, showing up for the entire game and showing up on the road. And then you look at, we haven't really had a ton of games under Billy Napier where both sides of the ball have actually shown up consistently. Let's exclude 2023, or let's exclude 2022. Let's exclude the Patrick Toney time because different defensive coordinator. Let's chalk that one up. But you look at the Utah game, defense showed up for the most part. I understand, Utah backup quarterback. There were a couple of bad plays like the zone read touchdown and stuff like that. Yeah, and the 70-yard touchdown to start the game. Obviously, yes. But for the most part, the defense played well in that game. There were a couple of big plays for Utah, and we had this discussion too in the Locked On Gators Discord where people were talking about that game and how the defense was bad in that one. I don't get it. And I know that people brought up, I think it was the run game as well, and they're like, Utah ran. No, they didn't. Utah did not run all over Florida at all this year. Utah, last year, you could argue that they did and they could have kept. But this year, Utah, yeah, they had 105 yards on 30 carries. This was not some dominant performance. A quarter of their yards came on one run. So it wasn't like that. You look at the McNeese game. Your team showed up against an FCS opponent. You look at the Tennessee game. Your whole team showed up for the first half. Second half, both fell off. Offense fell off way more. Defense fell off a little bit. Charlotte, offense didn't show up. Kentucky, nobody showed up. Vanderbilt, they showed up for the most part. Okay, you could argue both showed up for that one. South Carolina, again, whole team, I mean, defense didn't show up for the first half really at all. Offense did show up, and then defense showed up very late. I guess they just had some trouble getting off the bus and getting out of the hotel. But this has been a game where this has been a program where under Billy Napier has not been able to string together success consistently. Find a way to figure that out. You've had the bye week. You've made improvements. South Carolina road game this year, you showed up off the bus. Offense showed up more than we can say for most of their road games with under Billy Napier. You can string together success. You got to figure it out. You have the team that can string together some success consistently. You have to figure it out. I understand this is a tough second half of the schedule, but this is where we find out how far can this team really get. You have to win the Arkansas game. And I think you should be able to scrape by either, Missouri, LSU, someone you should be able to scrape by. I think you should win 7 games at this point. 6 is the floor. You have to win at least one of these games. But I think you should win 7. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. We'll be back tomorrow to talk more Florida Gators football for Locked On Gators. I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Whole 9 Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33, and I will see you all tomorrow.